But as with any broad social movement, things quickly became more complicated. It is simple to condemn things that even the perpetrator knew were wrong when he did them. Trading movie roles for sex? Wrong. Installing remote-controlled locks on office doors? Drugging unwitting sex partners? Sexual relationships with minors? Wrong, wrong, wrong. Less clear is how to hold men to account for things that raise eyebrows today, but might not have even a few years ago. Sexist jokes? Tone-deaf passes? Hugging everyone within arm's reach at fundraising dinners? Which brings us to Joe Biden. It was demeaning and disrespectful, said Flores of the Time in 2014 when she says Biden put his hands on her shoulders, inhaled my hair and planted a big slow kiss on the back of my head. The conversation in the days since has essentially been about the spectrum from Weinstein to Biden. Does it matter that Biden did what he did these two incidents and the countless other times he hugged and touched people openly, often in front of cameras, exhibiting a public persona more like an exuberant puppy than a predator? The stories of Biden being Biden go back years. In 2014 NPR referred to his trademark embraces when describing how he enthusiastically kissed and hugged a 102-year-old woman who had come to see him during a visit to a job training program. After a kiss that barely missed her mouth, he said, "I need a hug," and leaned on in for one, wrote reporter Tamara Keith. After his son Beau died 3 years ago, social media was filled with stories of the support Biden had given them when they were grieving. And over the past few days others have stepped forward to describe how his literal and virtual hugs were welcome in their lives. Joe Biden is one of the truly decent and compassionate men in all of American politics, wrote Meghan McCain on Twitter. He has helped me through my father's diagnosis, treatment, and ultimate passing more than anyone of my father's friends combined. I wish there was more empathy from our politicians, not less. And in an essay on Medium, Stephanie Carter, the wife of former Secretary of Defense Ash Carter, defended Biden against commenters who called a photo of Biden with his hands on her shoulders during her husband's swearing-in creepy. The Joe Biden in my picture is a close friend helping someone get through a big day, for which I will always be grateful, she wrote. She had taken a spill on some ice in front of cameras earlier in the day, she explained, and was still feeling uncharacteristically nervous as Ash was giving remarks. That was when Biden leaned in to tell me thank you for letting him do this and kept his hands on my shoulders as a means of offering his support. The fact that the latest Biden accusations have traction, however, shows that there is more than one way to view that image. And like a 1980s hairstyle, something that looked normal and even flattering in one era comes to look completely different with time. And that the passage of time, the fact that this is a new moment, is far more likely the takeaway of this current Biden brouhaha. Biden has to understand that in the world we are in now people's space is important to them and what's important is how they receive it, not necessarily how you intended it, said House Speaker Nancy Pelosi who, while 3 years older than Biden, has avoided coming across as a throwback to an earlier era. She even had some stage instructions. Join the straight arm club, Pelosi said, advising her fellow Democrat to stick to arm's-length handshakes with men and women alike. Just pretend you have a cold and I have a cold. If Biden truly supports women and gender equality, he would step aside and support one of the many talented and qualified women running, she wrote. The same goes for the other men who have thrown their hat in the ring. Women are 52% of the population. We are not a minority, we are the majority. It is time we are represented as such. After 45 male presidents, it is time we elect a woman. The women already in the race have more than hinted at the same. If we spend our whole time talking about what men had done and what they didn't do, we are never going to talk about what women can do, said presidential candidate Senator Amy Klobuchar when asked about the allegations about Biden in a television interview. In short, Biden proudly, but also problematically, represents an old era at a time when many voters want a new one. If these allegations dent his prospective candidacy, it will not be because they show the man to be different than anyone thought he was, but because it is time for the country to be different than it used to be. As New York Times columnist Michelle Goldberg wrote yesterday, he's the product of his time, and his time is up.